On this channel, through my content and through my work, I do my very best to recontextualize scenes and characters in One Piece that have maybe not been seen in different lights before. One Piece is, in internet terms, an old property. It's an old fandom, a large fandom, and by that definition, a pretty solidly set fandom. And I know I've got you guys on the edge of your seats, but before I keep going, I'm just gonna quickly jump into a sponsor. Thanks to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. Modern day browsers suck because they're boring. Standard browsers simply do not have enough hot anime babes for my liking, and especially not enough Zoro. Well, with Opera GX, you can get as much Zoro as you want. Opera GX turns your browser into the gaming anime mood board you've been dreaming of, the whole thing being completely customizable with all the mods you can find. Mostly for free in the Opera GX store. They don't seem to have Sanji because they hate me, but there's some awesome Luffy choices. Hey, what's this? Now I open up my browser and get hit with the joys of Luffy. Or Zoro. Let's keep Big Man on here actually. Opera GX is a browser where you have complete control, allowing you to control background music, keyboard sounds, opening and closing tab sounds, theme and colors of the browser, and as previously shown, mod dedicated wallpapers. My typing is now Chopper's little footsteps. The true Chopper experience. Do not worry, if that feels too much for you, you can turn that all off whenever you want, because you can disable and enable mods and individual modifications in the mods menu, all available from the sidebar. If you're a multitasker and you're in the middle of a long anime series, do not fret, Opera GX has you covered, as you can pull videos out of any website to have them sitting in the corner. This works especially well for anyone with a single screen. Just click the little button on the top center of the video and it's windowed for your viewing pleasure. Not only that, but with the sidebar allowing the addition of multiple apps and video viewing websites, you can scroll things like TikTok while still annoying your friends in Discord. And it takes 2 seconds to import bookmarks over. Just press on this gear icon in the bottom left, scroll down to synchronization, find import bookmarks and settings, and click import. And the result? Well, I've already bookmarked everything, but you get the idea. It's all quick and easy. This is a browser made by gamers for gamers, and you'll find multiple settings which will allow you to play your fun little games with ease. Use my link to download Opera GX today. It'll be the best browser switch you've ever made. You deserve Zoro's big juicy schmeat on your homepage. And thank you so much Opera GX for sponsoring this video. I will not let you down. Alright, let's get back to it. As you guys can all tell, my channel mainly focuses on characters, looking at their writing, their motivations, and their purpose. I had a realization that hey, I don't have to stop at characters. One Piece is a huge series with a lot going on, but still, the popular opinion will be gravitated towards. And of course it will be. That's totally natural. But there were a few moments and a few big scenes where I noticed I seemed to feel different from the majority. It's not by any drastic change, of course, and it's by no means a bad thing. But sometimes I do think One Piece being shoved into the shonen category leads it to being looked at on a very surface level. Now, One Piece is no Oppenheimer. It can indeed be a mess sometimes. But there's still a lot more layers than people give it credit for. And this is due to Oda being a writer who enjoys audience interpretation and encourages it more than anything. If he wants to tell us something straight up, a character will usually say it point blank. But if he wants us to decide what these characters are thinking and feeling in the moment, well, they won't say anything. In fact, I've noticed there's an extreme lack of thought bubbles in One Piece. Luffy, the main character, doesn't think at all. And yes, while that can be taken as he has zero thoughts, it's also a very interesting path to take for a main character. So, in saying all that, I ask you to please have an open mind for this. A lot of this video involves personal perception, my own thoughts and feelings, and isn't meant to be an attack on how other people view this series. Interpretation is a beautiful thing, and you are very free to disagree. Ladies, gentlemen, and my fellow freaks in the audience, today I will do my best to reframe Zoro's famous "nothing happened" scene. Oh yes. that scene. The inspiration for this video came from the fact I've watched the anime, read the manga, and then heard a new One Piece anime was being made. Because when it comes to reading manga, you are a lot more free to have your own interpretation. Music, editing, voice acting, and even color choice all affects our viewings and feelings so much. When you watch something that's not just the original author's vision, that's the script writers, the storyboarders, the sound designers, the editors, and the director's vision as well. The anime specifically is certainly not just Oda's vision. While the manga still follows constraints by editors and by Shonen Jump, as well as Shueisha, the publishing company who own the license for One Piece. Yes, it's not Oda. I'm afraid we live in an age where creators do not own their own intellectual property. The manga will always hold much more of the original creator's vision than the anime will. That's not to say it's a bad thing at all. Just look at episode 10-15 of One Piece. They took literal single frames and single pages of Ace's interaction with Yamato and turned it into a whole theatrical scene filled with amazing animation and beautiful dialogue. Adaptation can be a beautiful thing. Another person's vision and love for an existing property can be a beautiful thing. Thank you, Megumi Ishitani, for your fantastic work directing One Piece. I love you women in art and film. But, as I said, that makes it someone else's vision, someone else's interpretation, and someone else's views of the scene and characters. Different directors will bring different ideas, and that's why the new anime announcement got me thinking, what are they going to do differently? Surely they won't copy and paste what Toei has done, mostly because, as good and fun as the original anime was, it was still trapped in the realm of Sunday morning cartoons. This means quick production, a more basic approach towards things like music and animation, and dragging out of episodes to meet that quota. Not to mention Oda was writing for his damn life in arcs like Dressrosa. Poor guy had the anime not just on his ass, but up it. I'm sure you guys have all noticed, but series anime and TV in general has hit extreme professional highs. We're getting shows that look like movies now, both for live action and animated series. And this gives the creators more room to really push their vision to the stars. Not only did One Piece's rooftop episode have an insane amount of work and beauty to it, but so did episodes such as the Gear 5 reveal and Egghead's opening episode. I mean, just look at Egghead's opening compared to the first original One Piece openings. This is genuinely insane evolution, and I cannot think of any episodes before Wano that got this treatment in regards to artist collaboration and stunning animation. Sorry, I'm rambling, but my point to all of this is, this new anime will no doubt have a much higher standard. I love the old animation more than anything. I honestly think it's aged really well and has a nostalgia that cannot be recaptured. But that doesn't mean we can't be excited for a retelling in an updated animated form. And my first question to come from the announcement was, which scenes are they going to choose to put their most efforts into? One Piece is like fine wine, you see. The longer you wait for it, the better it gets. This new anime has the advantage of understanding audience reaction and reception to different moments to the point they definitely know what to focus on. And the thriller bark scene? Zoro's nothing happened scene. Oh boy. You can bet there are going to be long meetings around big tables about this one. And before I dig into that scene, before I get my scalpel out and cut it into tiny little pieces to explain my thoughts, let's actually look at Thriller Bark as a whole. Thriller Bark, first and foremost, was about death. By all means, this arc was a gothic fiction, and strayed from the usual shonen formula in general. Yes, there was a big bad, but Luffy didn't particularly fight it himself. When it comes to top 10 boss fights, Luffy's Thriller Bark fight certainly isn't in there, and that's mainly because the focus on this arc wasn't the fights. In the same way, the Punk Hazard arc didn't focus just on Luffy fighting Caesar, or Whole Cake Island didn't focus just on Luffy fighting Katakuri or Big Mom. There was simply a greater plot that demanded our attention. As I think I've said before, the plot does not revolve around the fights in One Piece. The fights revolve around the plot. If the fight matters to the plot, it happens. That's literally why Luffy is given reasons to fight these characters that's more than just because I want to start a fight. Well, apart from Katakuri. But the fact Luffy himself wanted to fight Katakuri good-naturedly speaks a lot on the respect he felt for Katakuri. But this is a genuine rarity. Anyways, for Thriller Bark, it literally took Luffy one big-ass punch to take Moria out. The big finale focus was actually the crew combining their skills to take out zombie ores. Except then Thriller Bark does something very different from the other arcs, and seems to give us a second climax. We get the defeat of Oars, we get the defeat of Maria, but then Kuma comes in, and our second fight and climax is given to both Zoro and Sanji. This fight and this scene noticeably a lot heavier than what we've received through the majority of Thriller Bark. Not saying Thriller Bark wasn't emotional, but Oda certainly pulled out all his stops for these last moments, from Kuma to Brook's backstory. And I think that's so we go, oh hooray, that was a bit stressful, but they managed to get themselves out of a tough situation. Wait, who the fuck is this? And as Zoro tries to fight Kuma, as Zoro is clearly terrified at the fact Sanji breaks his leg against Kuma's iron body, and as Kuma sets off the bomb, that's when we're met with these harrowing scenes. The begging, the refusal, the bargain, and the sacrifice. Now, when I watched this in the anime, I knew it was coming, and I was on the edge of my seat for it. But the anime did something I found interesting, and something I remember questioning. Let me play the Nothing Happened scene out to refresh your memory.
何もかも無事なわけねえ。あの野郎はどこだ。いた。脅かしやがって。おい、あの七部会どこに。
Did you catch that? Let me play it again.
おい、あの七部会どこに。
The music. That music is an interesting choice. An insanely interesting choice. Because that music indicates triumph. The song title is even called The Very, Very, Very Strongest. And oh, would you look at that? It even has Zoro's Nothing Happened stance in some of these thumbnails. But Mel, what's interesting about that? I hear you asking. And what's interesting is that in my eyes, the entirety of this scene is kind of the opposite of a triumph. Stop throwing tomatoes at me. Stop it. Let me explain. I am by no means undermining Zoro's strength here. It was insane. He was a unit for this, and I was proud of him. But my biggest thing is I wouldn't call this a triumph. I wouldn't call this a feat of strength. This moment, more than anything, is about Zoro's dedication and loyalty to Luffy and the crew. What he did was commendable. It was very commendable. But I don't think it was about strength at all. At least not physically, not in the way the anime made it sound like. Remember when I said music changes our perception of scenes so much? This is what I was talking about. Because when we look at the manga page, it's just this. One shot of Zoro with a bam, one shot of Zoro with a doom, and Sanji panicked the whole time. When I read this in the manga, I was honestly terrified, because the image of Zoro dripping with blood is terrifying. And considering this arc is about losing loved ones, considering this arc is about death, when the Straw Hats wake up with someone asking if everyone's alive, and Sanji notices Zoro isn't around, I'm unsure sure how else I was meant to feel, hence why I was confused at the music choice, because I would have honestly let the scene quietly play out if it were up to me, as a way to allow the audience to process their own thoughts and feelings for Zoro's bloodied state, just like the manga allowed us to do. Let me actually reframe this for you. In fact, let me reframe this by saying something maybe controversial. Everything Zoro went through here was not a fight. In general, this wasn't a fight. There was no winner here. There was simply a deal being met. But even more than that, this was Zoro being cornered. Because Kuma is terrifying. Zoro raised his swords against Kuma to begin with because he thought he could win and protect his crew. As Zoro realizes Kuma is too much for him to handle due to the fact Kuma can literally melt steel, he essentially forfeits. He even says the words, "I'm starting to lose hope." Kuma refuses to leave without Luffy's head, and that's when the deal is struck. But the biggest thing here is Zoro offers his life. He is on his hands and knees begging Kuma to take his head instead of Luffy's. And when Sanji steps in, offering his life instead, Zoro takes him out so no one else can die except for him. While this is an honorable act, and while it's insanely commemorable, it was still the only option Zoro had to keep everyone safe. Once again, he was pushed into a corner, and I personally do not see anything overly triumphant about a person escaping a corner in a near-dead state. This is amplified to me from the fact this was also Luffy's pain Zoro was shouldering. It's not like Zoro was taking pain directly from Kuma. It's not like he was fighting Kuma in this bubble. He had to feel his captain's pain, to the point Luffy's pain nearly killed him. And this is why when Sanji talks to Lola's pirates, and they're cheering about how cool Zoro's bravery was, Sanji tells them to shut up. Because while this did have a form of bravery to it, this was also the only choice Zoro got. And I highly doubt Zoro would see this as an act of bravery when he did, by all means, lose the fight. I mean, just look at what happens when he wins a fight. He still punishes himself because he thinks he needs to be stronger. I cannot imagine how garbage Zoro must feel about all this. I said previously that Oda is an author very open to interpretation, and that he definitely encourages it in his story. But I also said when Oda wants us to definitely know something, he straight up says it, which is exactly what Sanji does at this moment. After telling Lola's pirates to shut up, he then says to them, Zoro didn't do this to make Luffy feel grateful. Besides, how would Luffy feel knowing his suffering is what caused his friend so much pain? And then he proceeds to essentially blackmail them so they keep their mouths shut. After all this, Sanji calls Zoro a hero, and Brook calls friendship a wonderful thing. The most we get out of this is the hero line, but Sanji was so angry at Zoro's recklessness, and so determined to keep this a secret from Luffy, that I have to ask again, where is the triumph here? Where is the strength part in this that warrants such victorious music to be made? Because from Thriller Bark being about death, to Zoro being genuinely afraid of Kuma, to him doing all he can just to strike a deal and take on Luffy's pain and come out of it nearly dead, I don't see a victory here. What I see is a man who put his life on the line for his crew and captain, and came out of it as an incredibly close call. One so close that he was dripping paralyzed in blood. One so close that Sanji genuinely thought he was dead, and one so close Zoro refuses to tell anyone, not even Luffy or Sanji, what happened. Because if he tells them, he knows they'll be angry, he knows they'll be distressed, and he refuses to let them know he almost died for them due to being pushed into a corner with only one way out. So, nothing happened. I truly understand why people think this scene is cool. I understand why people see Zoro as cool for this. And once again, that's great. It's up to you how you feel about the scene, or how you see Zoro in the moment. I was personally just very taken aback with how the anime handled it. But in saying that, I also know plenty of people who read only the manga and felt the same way. Because there is a triumph upon getting out of a tough situation. That much is true. I was personally just terrified for Zoro's damn life upon seeing buckets of his own blood around him. Not to mention the terrifying bubble buildup and the chills I got when he finally stepped into that bubble. It wasn't exactly a sports cheering, hollering and whooping moment for me, and was more a sitting silently in shock, not being able to believe what I just witnessed. This is why I am so excited to see what the remake is going to do with it. Is it going to keep it this way? Will it push us into believing this is something to cheer at? Or will it make our skin crawl at Zoro's sacrifice, nearly taking him out for good? We will need to wait years for it, no doubt. Yet I am so keen for it either way. But everything I just said, you're gonna have to forget it. Why? Well, because nothing happened, obviously. Let's keep it that way. And with that, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. This is a bit different than what I usually do, but the Nothing Happened scene is so talked about in One Piece spaces that I really wanted to grab it and mold it around like a clump of clay. Did this video do anything for you? Did it change anything for you? Do you still think it's an epic moment that shows the heights of Zoro's coolness? Or does it now kind of break your heart like it did mine? Tell me, because I always love hearing it. Just a quick reminder that I do have a Patreon, and if you would like to support me there, I'd really appreciate it. However, I know not everyone can support me in that way, and watching and sharing these videos does more than you can imagine for me. My Patreon also includes how to get into my Discord if you're interested in that. If there's anything you'd like to see me cover, One Piece or otherwise, please let me know. And I'll see you in whatever I make next. See ya!